Oh hey, didn't see there. I know why you're here. So the older members of this channel will remember that back in the day I created a couple ecospheres, the creekosphere and the lake ecosphere. So it's been about 3 years since I made those, so I'm sure you guys want an update. So today we're doing an update on the creek ecosphere and the lake ecosphere. Let's get into this. Here is the lake ecosphere in all of its glory. So right off the bat, if we look at the bottom layer, you'll see that it's green. The reason for that is there's actually algae underground. See, in the wild, that can't happen because there's no light underground, but in environments such as these, algae can actually persist under the substrate. As for this stuff, I actually did remove a small piece of the algae from the lake ecosphere about a year back and put it in here due to the lack of plants, which actually caused an explosion of biodiversity. If I zoom in, you'll see small animals moving around, and those are called Daphnia. They're tiny little crustaceans, and they live in the water, and they eat stuff in there. But yeah, here's some of them moving around now. You may have noticed that the water level has remained the same throughout the life of this ecosphere, and that's because if you make an ecosphere, you need to have an area of air on the top, and the reason for this is if you don't, it'll block gas exchange, meaning the algae in your ecosphere won't be able to take up carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and breathe. So I've killed a few ecospheres this way before I actually learned about it. Yes, you do need an air bubble at the top. Now we're moving on to the lake ecosphere, which does look a bit different than the creek ecosphere. This is the lake ecosphere. Yeah, looks a bit different now, huh? Here's the lake ecosphere. So right off the bat, you'll see that it has a significantly higher amount of algae than the other ecosphere, and that's because it receives more direct sunlight. In the substrate, there is also algae, but don't worry, because that's like normal in ecospheres. And in this one, we actually have snails. So this is a small bladder snail. They've bred inside this ecosphere for generations, and those little dots you see moving are also Daphnia, as well as copepods and ostracods, which are, again, tiny crustaceans that eat debris in the water. So again, you'll see same amount of air so that they can actually, breathe. And yeah, this is the lake ecosphere years later. And there is still a stick in there, and it will probably not break down for a very long time. So those were the two ecospheres, but I got a surprise for you. They're not. So in the meantime, I've actually made two more ecospheres. The dates of which they were made, I do not know. But anyway, it's time to look at those. First up is my tiny ecosphere. So this is the tiniest ecosphere I've ever made. On the bottom is play sand, then there's water and algae. And this is a couple months old, hasn't crashed. And yeah, there's little animals like Daphnia and stuff like that in here, except there's not very many because it's not very big. This is the seacosphere, or the sea ecosphere. My parents went on a vacation to Destin Beach in Florida, which they didn't take me with on. However, I did tell them to bring me back some water and some sand so that I could do this. So on the bottom is sand from the beach, the Gulf of Mexico, of course. And then you'll see that algae is actually starting to grow on the bottom. And then if you look up here, this little sheet type thing, there's actually another one over here. That is called a biofilm. It's a sheet of living bacteria, and it contains most of the bacteria in this ecosphere. And bacteria are important for aquatic ecosystems because they help to establish something called the nitrogen cycle, which basically allows stuff to break down in the water. But yeah, this is the ocean ecosphere, actual ocean water. It is salty. And I did a water test on this ecosphere, and the water parameters were actually perfect, which is, you know, interesting enough. That's it for this video. If you enjoy content with ecospheres in it, please let me know so I know to make more of it, because as it sits right now, I probably won't be making much of it unless I make a new ecosphere. But in order to do that, I need to find a new body of water, because I made ecospheres in every body of water near me. But anyway, yep, hope you enjoyed.